welcome Chattosauruses. We are going to be talking about some interesting stuff today. As you can see in that little box over there, we are going to be talking about clean testing. So, where did this come from, and why did I decide to change topics for today? The short answer is thing on the Twitters about testing. So basically, Corey House posted this thing, and he was kind of like, hey, developers all the time are always saying, like, I don't have time to write the tests. And trust me, I agree with him here. Developers are always saying, I don't have the time to write the tests. Sometimes that developer is even me. And legitimately, occasionally you might not have the time to write the test, but usually that means, like, there's a bug and it's got to be fixed, like, immediately. It's got to go out the door. And when you do that, you are chancing a couple of things. So you are chancing that there's going to be a new error in production. There's going to be a new error that QA is going to find. Like there are potentially problems if you don't test it. So you need to be really in that, like, this has to immediately go out kind of mindset. The challenge is that most of the time, even not counting those, I think we get sped up by doing a little bit of testing. And hear me out for a second. The number of times that we have tried to do a feature and it didn't work the first time and we messed it up, a lot of those get fixed by having the automatic testing that we get from unit testing. And man, my hair is really crazy right now with the thing and the lights, and it's invisible. I have invisible hair. My lighting must have gotten messed up when I was doing that. It didn't look this crazy a minute ago. Where's my camera? There it is. Filters, chroma key. Don't quite chroma so much key. Slightly less crazy. I'll take it. And thank you for changing the colors, S&B. Alright, so he commented this thing, and I was kind of like, it's like, yeah, we're having to fight these battles all the time. So, about a decade ago, I started teaching TDD to people, and I started, like that. It would have been late 2009, early 2010 when I had been doing TDD probably for about a year at that point, and I was like, nope, got to share this with everybody. Everybody should be doing this. So I started going to conferences and user groups and talking about TDD and trying to get this point across. The interesting thing is, one of my slides in those talks was always a really funny one to people, because it's obvious and they agree, but I still had to point it out, and I still have to point it out. And that slide is, well, I don't have an example of the slide because I'm not going to go dig out my slides for anything, but I always have a slide in there that says that the test code is real code. Which sounds funny because it's like, well, yes, of course it's real code. And the argument that I'm trying to make is a lot of people think, well, there's my real code that runs in production and is actually going to run the application. And then there's my test code. And that's totally different code. And I sit there and I'm like, no, that is the same code. Your test code absolutely is real code. It might not be the part of the program that runs out there, but it is like the safety net. That'd be like saying, well, the net below the tightrope walker isn't part of the act. It's like, no, that's important. That has to be there. That needs to be maintained. It needs to be, no, that's your safety net. Even if it's not the thing that's part of the walking across, it's like, no, yep, you want it there. So your test code is what protects production. So it's part of production. It is real code. It is the production code because it's what protects your application. So with that being said, and I use real code because I do mean, like, not just production that is part of production. I mean, like, what do we do with all of our other code? What's the thing that all of us emphasize all the time? What is, like, Uncle Bob famous for example? Like, he wrote a book called Clean Coding, and then there's Clean Code, and then there's Clean Coder. But clean code, we often use that word. I use that word. And yes, exactly. S&B and Stolfender, I think, are both laughing about this. Hey, Mr. Shoji, welcome. But isn't production just a big... Yes, Stoolpenner, production is just a big test system. No, so the idea is that if we're going to put all this effort into making sure that the code that runs in production is clean and maintainable, readable, you can change it, it's going to work effectively for a long period of time. If we're going to put that effort into the production code that runs in production, we should put that into the test code, because both the production code and the test code are real code that need to get maintained. And so that, I think, is the thing that we are battling now, is that we taught people how to write tests, but not how to write clean tests. So we showed them, here's the framework, here's how you maintain it, here's how you walk through it. But because we did not emphasize quite enough, and that includes me, we did not emphasize quite enough to everyone, this has to be some of the cleanest code in your code base. Because we didn't emphasize that, we end up with a whole bunch of really messy test code. Okay, I now have a question for everyone that's watching. Is there a part of your code base that you're working on right now, or have worked on in recent years, that was really bad and scary, and the other developers and yourself, that most of the development team did not want to go into, did not want to mess with, because if you changed anything, if you touched anything, it was going to fall to pieces and the whole application would break, and you knew it, and you didn't know exactly how it worked, you didn't know exactly what it was doing, and you just said, nope, there be dragons, stay away, nope, not going in there. It's funny because I can't think of many so like I've been on a couple of projects where we did not have one of those, but a lot of projects, and maybe this is just because a lot of the projects I get pulled in on are the ones that need help, because nature of my job for a long time is there's always that spot, and you find it, and you debate like, when do you go and fix that? And the problem is that in a lot of people's code bases right now, their tests turned into that. And that's a real challenge. Hey, welcome, Gareth. I want to say hi to people. Hi, I am Rook. I guess I could just say Rook. Welcome back. Good to see you here again. And let's see, what do people say about that? You have loads of those. The answer is yes, and I refactored it in the response that the others finally knew. Yes, exactly, Stoolpenner. So, yes, those always creep into complex systems. And the problem is, sometimes they're so big that you can't do the investment to fix it, so it lingers for a long time and causes problems through the whole application. If you can ever get it fixed, you are in a wonderful, wonderful place. One of the applications that I worked on a long time ago, talking like, I don't know, almost 15 years ago, had one of those, and another developer, a good friend of mine, did eventually get the time to go and refactor that, and it's like, yep, you just think about the amount that cost you. Well, here's the problem. When it's your tests, people can easily say, well, the tests are bad, we shouldn't be testing because look at all of this stuff the tests are causing. The tests are causing problems, they're not helping us, it costs us more to write them, they're hard to write, and even when you write them, you break them all the time. Every one of us has heard that argument. We've seen people comment about that all the time on the internet, saying like, hey, yeah, TDD's bad because the tests don't actually help, they cause more problems, you have to maintain them, blah, 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 right? We always hear that argument, and when the tests are not maintained, are not kept clean, I can't argue with them. Those tests did cost them. They really did. Like, they looked at their example and said, hey, look, this happened. And I can't argue that. Like, no, your test really did cost you that time. And when you start looking at it, it's like, yeah. But that's because the tests that they have are not the clean, nice, well-maintained part of their code base. The tests they had were the scary part of their code that no one wanted to touch and wasn't well-maintained and didn't get kept together. It wasn't clean. So that is what happened. The intersection of the bad code in the code base and the tests. When you get that, you're the developer now in that spot. And we can't blame you for that. Like, that, you're just stating exactly what you see. You're not wrong. Like, you've seen badness in the tests. And the only answer we have to that is we need cleaner tests. And sometimes the problem in a code base ends up that, well, the code was really hard to test. And so, we need cleaner tests. And sometimes the problem in a code base ends up that, well, the code was really hard to test. And so, we need cleaner tests. And sometimes the problem in a code base ends up that, well, the code was really hard to test. And so, we need cleaner tests. And sometimes the problem in a code base ends up that, well, the code was really hard to test. And so, we need cleaner tests. And sometimes the problem in a code base ends up that, well, the code was really hard to test. And so, we need cleaner tests. And sometimes the problem in a code base ends up that, well, the code was really hard to test. And so, we need cleaner tests. And sometimes the problem in a code base ends up that, well, the code was really hard to test. And so, we need cleaner tests. And sometimes the problem in a code base ends up that, well, the code was really hard to test. And so, we need cleaner tests. And sometimes the problem in a code base ends up that, well, the code was really hard to test. And so, we need cleaner tests. And sometimes the problem in a code base ends there are no backlash. Don't run away. There are in fact times that you do not want to test the code. There are a couple of places where I would say no, a test is not worth doing there, or certainly not a unit test. Maybe an integration test, but certainly not a unit test. Okay, what do we got? Your D365 it's led to the time and opportunity to do major refactoring and simplification in our web app service code base. It's not something that happens very often. Oh, that's really nice, S&B. It's always good to be able to go back and get some refactoring into your code base. Right now, what you're doing is writing some end-to-end tests to verify that the behavior hasn't changed. Yeah, so that's actually also another tip is there are sometimes cases where you can do some simple like end-to-end like full check of the system. You don't verify like every detail of the logic happened exactly the way that you expect, but you sort of make sure everything works together. And those are often really good tests for a lot of systems. And I think many people don't do that. So one of the applications for one of my clients right now, I actually did a couple of those. So we have some tests that verify that the whole thing works. And it's basically just, hey, set up a couple of sample inputs, make sure that we got all the way to the end with what we expected. Cool. Good. That's, way easier than testing all the individual pieces. So instead of having so we have tests that do integration tests on all the various layers of the application, and a couple of tests that just verify the whole thing just works together generally. It doesn't test all the logic, nothing like that. It's just, do all these pieces work together? Okay, cool. Does this layer work? Does this layer work together? And does this layer work together? So it's basically a check of each of the connection points, a big test on the whole thing, and it's minimizing. If you do a lot of tests on the whole application, checking all the various logic, that is going to change all the time, and so you're going to have to fiddle all those. They're harder to change, so you don't want a lot of them. And then the other thing that I think gets a lot of people is in their unit tests, they will do how to phrase this. They will test the exact behavior of the implementation of the method they are checking, and instead of checking that it did what was expected. So occasionally it seems like logic, and it'll trick all of us. Like, I get tricked by this sometimes too. I'll say like, okay, let's make sure that when it does this, it calls that, and make sure when it does this, it calls that other thing. But a lot of cases, what we'll end up doing is we will have a test that checks that it called the other method with all these specific values. And the problem with that is we really haven't tested much. And if we change up the implementation, it breaks. So a lot of times I just like to say, hey, did it call that thing at all? Okay, cool, good. That's what it was supposed to do. And it's supposed to pass in the values. Welcome. Yep, things are going well over here. Also helps to refactor so that you can put your... yes. So let's talk about some actual testing practices. I discussed this a little bit, and actually where this came from. So funny enough, I responded to this, and I was like, hey, I started pushing this a decade ago, and originally the complaint was that, hey, the tests slow us down, and the problem is that, like, yeah, the tests would slow you down because you didn't know what you were doing, and then once you learn how to write tests, the tests don't slow you down as much, and you start, you can write more tests, but the problem is, if you don't write clean tests, then that's just a new problem. So, all right, let's jump into some testing here. Oh, good luck on that Hangman, guys. What did we have? Have you delved into property-based testing too? That's a really good tool to... Oh, yeah, so Gareth is correct. So there's multiple different types of unit tests that you can do. So I like state-based testing as the best approach. It's basically you check the state of the inputs, you check the state of the outputs, and you verify that things happened as expected. If you find that you end up doing a lot of mocking in your code, then that's usually a good indication that that your tests are getting too complex, or maybe your code that you're testing is too complex and you need to simplify things. So if you end up with lots and lots of mocks and lots of expectations, you're setting up a lot of mocking, you're verifying a lot of things, if your tests get really complex like that, there's a good chance that your code is either too complex and you need to separate out what it's doing, or you might be trying to test what I would say is just the linking of two parts of your code base, at which point that should get covered by an integration test and not have a unit test on it, because there's not really logic there. Okay, so that's kind of the line that I draw in those, is if the unit test is just really, really nasty, then that's often the problem, is it's either complex code or it should be a unit test. So, all right, let's hop into this. So first off, language, C#, platform, well, I guess it doesn't matter. And project type, let's do a, do I want to do a console? We're just going to do a test. So we're just going to do a test app. We won't worry about anything else. How about xunit test project.NET Core? Sounds good. We'll do that. So I obviously want to write in C# because that is my primary language of choice. You test your CRUD service layer using integration tests, because for unit test yes, exactly. Yes, S&B is absolutely correct. For those types of things, you do some kind of integration test. Now, something else I want to point out to people is the integration test sometimes can go against still a test version of something. So if it's easier to stand up a test API or something, you can hit a test API. If it's easier to stand up like a mock service fake thing, you can do that. And that's going to function more like an integration test than a unit test, because you're not going to mock out all the dependencies. You're going to have a fake service in the way that you're going to talk to. So it's kind of like, yeah, I'm communicating with this thing. It's not the real one, but I'm at least testing the communication works as expected. So there are lots of those little tricks. Okay. Let's see. What do I want to open up? Sorry, I don't want to show client names to pulling this off screen so no one can see. I was worried that if I went in there, it would have a client folder showing. Let's see, DevChatter. All right, there we go. So we're gonna go with clean testing demo. This will be a clean testing demo. So I'm going to talk about some tricks that I often work with clients on about clean testing. So sometimes this is their challenge. So I was thinking up some examples when I had the idea of doing these streams. Pudding, don't worry. We all have massive amounts of learning to do. If as a developer, if you ever stop learning things, you are going to feel terrible, because you're going to look out at the world and be like, I am so far behind. Now, I also want to cite the fact that all of us look out at things and we go, wow, that person knows a whole bunch of things I don't know. And that might be true. Welcome, Bart. Thanks for that follow. That we all look out and see others who know a whole bunch of stuff we don't know, which is one of the main reasons why imposter syndrome is as bad as it is in our industry. It's really, really bad. We all get it from time to time. I can tell you as a streamer, well, if you want to really, really hit your imposter syndrome, try doing a live stream, because man, it's like, yep, you're live, like, whoo, every mistake you make on these things is like, yep, not only did people watch me live as I did that stupid thing, but it's recorded. So yeah, if you want to test out imposter syndrome, go do this clean testing demo. Yeah, see, I typoed that. Look at that, clean testing demo. We're just gonna do that and hope that I didn't totally mess that up. Yes, as exactly as Ace Flames here is mentioning, all of us have things that we bring to the table and that we know a lot about. Yep. Your test target class has 4 dependency instances being injected as having 4 mock services. It depends on what they are and how much stuff you need to do with them. So, for example, I've worked with a lot of systems. So I've worked with some systems that take the the AOP approach to logging, and they don't treat logging as a dependency that comes in, and they just let the logging be there, essentially like crossing all the platforms, and it's not injected as a dependency, for example. And if your code base has logging as a dependency, because some code bases I'll say, yeah, we're just going to inject logging as a dependency, and then in the tests, whatever, we ignore it. Or if, in certain types of the system we need to change the behavior, we can, whatever. It's fine. Some systems don't go that route. Some systems just say, hey, yeah, we've got logging, it's available at all times, and then in our tests, we just don't worry about it because it's running in a different place, and we just, at the startup of the test, we configure it not to send the logging anywhere. That's fine too. So if your dependencies that you're getting include things like that, then it's really not so bad, because you can usually ignore those. And a lot of tests, people, since you weren't testing the logging, I recommend you just pass in a logger mock and just be like, yep, there's a mock. We don't worry about if it gets called. We don't react. It doesn't do anything, because they're usually void methods to log anyway, so you don't have to return a value. So it's basically, yeah, it's there. We ignore it. Now, if your tests are always having like 4 dependencies that get mocked out, and every one of them actually for every test is having to have return values, expectations, verifications, things like that going on, then yes, that probably is a little bit too many dependencies in most of those. And that could come down to just that the classes that you're working with are too large, doing too many tasks, or it also could be that you have crossed levels of abstraction. So the idea is that at any given level of abstraction, your dependencies should be at roughly the same level of abstraction. If they're not, then that could be one of the problems. So for example, some people like to make sure that like at certain layers, it's like, oh yes, we have an understanding that we're working with services that do work, and we don't really care about how it gets it, where it's activating them, what kinds of behaviors happen when they do that. So some applications work that way. Some applications are built in like more of a DDD style, and so it's like, at this level we deal with aggregates and things like that. But then within the aggregates, it's dealing with different parts of the application. It's that idea that you shouldn't be crossing essentially these abstraction boundaries. That can sometimes cause you to have a lot of mocked out services and things like that. So if that's coming up. All right, let's jump into some code, because I actually want to talk about some practices that I think could help get people some cleaner tests when they're trying to deal with some of these challenges. So a lot of people do like to challenge the idea of TDD, as Ian's mentioning there, because there are absolutely some challenges there. One of the things with TDD to remember, and this is what I think people miss, is if we talk about the values of testing, and I'm just going to type here a little bit because I've got a spot to type. Part of the reason that we test, it can catch the bugs before going to production. So we'll say before QA, and then also before production, right? So that's QA person caught the issue and user caught the issue, both bad. So it can catch them before that, and it also helps with debugging those if they do get there. But in addition to that, and here's the one that I think a lot of us miss, and myself included there, because sometimes I fall into this same trap and I go, I'm going to write this code and then write the test. Heck, I've done that on stream plenty of times. And then sometimes I go, I should test this, but I think in this case the test is less interesting than the code, and I don't have time on the stream. And it legitimately is a time on the stream thing, because sometimes I'm trying to just show something and I care less about whether it works and just want to show how it works. I want to show the code more than making sure that every detail of the code, including all the edge cases, is right. That's the better clarification. Okay. So the last thing that it gets is making sure you got the logic right the first time. And that's the big one, is a lot of times it took me a long time to figure out what the logic was, and I manually tested it a whole bunch of times to try and get it working. And that's what it really saves me. Yes, exactly. So a lot of people are in that camp. That I think I got that right, because you mentioned specifically TDD. So I figured you probably unit test, but not TDD. And the two, and I agree. And yes, that's a lot of times why I will start with the implementation rather than starting with the code. Is if I have in my head how I want to do the implementation, but not how I want to call the code itself, a lot of times I will also start with the implementation. But then what I'm trying to do is what I try to do is I try to get as much of the implementation out of my head and into the code as I can, until I get to a good stopping point so I can go create the test. And the reason why is because this one, I know I will save a lot of time if I get to this before I'm done. And then the last one that I haven't mentioned here is number 4. And this is the one that we always forget about. So this is making sure that we got the logic right. The last one is making sure the code is testable. So that is the value of this one is a value of TDD, I should say. If you're planning on testing it at all ever, this helps make sure that you got the interface of it correctly. So what the method is that you call, what the structure is that you call. And so this is kind of like, it's like make you think from the perspective of the caller rather than the creator of the code. And yes, so Stoolpenner is talking about the idea of allowing you to safely refactor in the future. Do functional languages have some kind of a TDD analog? I mean, you can do TDD for functional languages too. And in fact, keep in mind that if you're using F#, you could write your tests in F# or C#. It doesn't really matter, because the end code could be run by either. What did Stoolpenner say? What about making it? Yes, so exactly. So you guys are talking about that. You're struggling with, well, the funny thing about testing an extension method is it's just a static method. So testing an extension method and testing a static method are the same thing. In theory, it should be a method that does not have dependencies other than the inputs. And as long as it's not calling a bunch of other statics and doing a bunch of really, really, really evil things that you should never, ever do. If I ever hear of you doing that, man, I won't do anything, but I'll be disappointed. But anyway, so the last thing that they're mentioning there is that it allows you to refactor, and that, by the way, is actually huge, because I do. There is some code that I was just working on for a client that I went in and I made massive changes to, and at the end of it I was like, okay, let's go ahead and run this and just like see what happened to these unit tests. They're all gonna be broken everywhere. And we ran it and I was like, okay, yep, there's like 20 broken. And then I tweak like one thing and I was like, oh wow, there was only one problem and they're all fixed. And it was funny, it's like and when I mean massive, I mean like I had like, it was such a big change that I didn't even want to run the tests between start and finish. It was so bad, like, because it was a huge change. But it's like at the end it was like, oh, it was only one tiny little problem, and then we fixed it and it was good. And it's like, if I hadn't had the test to tell me that, man, I would have like manually tested that thing for a day just to make sure that I didn't break anything. And it's like, and so the problem is that any developer that was stuck in that situation, if you didn't have the tests, you wouldn't have even done it. You wouldn't have done it. You would have said no. You would have said, no, we cannot refactor that. We cannot change it. It's not safe. Like, it'll break everything. And that is what tests let you do, is exactly what they mentioned there, is it lets you get that, because it catches the bugs before QA, it catches the bugs before production. So the like added value from this set of things is you can afford to refactor, which is huge. High level UI okay. UI tests are interesting. There are some new libraries that I want to work on that I haven't tried yet. That someone I made notes of them. They're recorded somewhere, so that hence I don't even remember the names of these. But I saw a couple of really cool UI testing frameworks that I want to take a look at. So UI testing I have done a bunch of in the past. In fact, For a while, I worked at a company called Telerik, who does sell some UI testing products that were pretty good. Every testing framework I've ever used has good things and bad things about it, and that, I'm sure, is still the case with every single framework you're going to try. There's going to be good stuff and bad stuff. One of the big challenges I've had with a lot of those frameworks is you either have to get really, really specific in the way that they're doing things. And by that I mean, like, if the way the application works is, someone's supposed to click this button and that button and this thing and that thing, the problem is you go, okay, well, I don't want to tie to the ID because that ID could change. So I want to find the login button, for example. So I'm going to say, okay, let's find the login button. Well, someone changed it. It's no longer a login button. Now it's like this drop-down thing that has a login box on it. Okay, test broken. Okay, got to fix that. And so those come up all the time. Like every time you're changing the UI, you're like, okay, let's go fix all the UI tests because we no longer have a login button. There's now a drop-down that has a login box, so there was no login button anymore. Okay, that's fine. We'll change it to that. But those kinds of changes happen all the time. I haven't seen one yet that lets us avoid those types of things. If we could get to that level, man, I would just be like, why am I even doing this job? It can do all the work. But yeah, there's that kind of stuff. Okay, is the dev stream still an ongoing project, Draco? I'm not sure. So there is a site that might just replace it. I don't know if we're going to go back to it. I really like the project. I still like some of the value that it has. A possibility might be leveraging what we were doing with the DevStreams project as additional features to another project. So essentially taking the cool stuff we built and applying it elsewhere. So for that one, we would probably be looking at the Live Coders team website to see if we could help them and essentially add in the same types of features that we wanted to have over there. Yes, that then focuses it so it's just the Live Coders, which does disappoint me a little bit because I do want it to be open to more than just Live Coders. But again, it's one of those just time things. My schedule got a little bit too busy, and so I didn't get enough streams in. And yes, you could certainly say that was planning rather than the testing's fault. Yes. I am actually anti 100% test coverage. I am against it. I actually think that 100% test coverage hurts more than it helps. And the reason why, welcome, Rob. Thanks for that follow. The reason why I'm not a fan of 100% test coverage is because I think about motivation, and I have done this as a developer. So I mentioned at the beginning of this when I showed my tweet and blah, 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 I talked about how a decade ago I started teaching TDD. So it was about a decade ago I started teaching, workshops and things like that, teaching everybody testing TDD and that sort of thing. And before that point, I actually already had my realization moment and my problems as a result of it. So let me explain. Story time. I wrote tests that were bad. I'm going to say that right now. When I started testing, my tests were bad. I wrote bad unit tests. I wrote bad integration tests. I wrote bad full system tests. I did. They were bad. And at the time, we also measured code coverage. So this is 2007, 2008. I started doing TDD, and we were unit testing everything, and we were working with an existing application, and we were trying to increase our code coverage. And we were adding tests, and Fuel Snable's lying in chat. We wrote unit tests, tons and tons of unit tests. We covered massive amounts. We took a code base that had no tests at all, full application, running a business, and we got it to 80 to 90% test coverage by the end of that effort to just get everything tested. And we weren't doing it as just add tests for the sake of adding tests. We did some of that, but for the most part, Stool Penner, I love you. That was funny. Please let him back, though. He didn't need 600 seconds. You should have given him 10 seconds. Oh, sorry about that. That was too funny. So what we did was every time we wrote new features in a place, we would test everything that was there and add our new features, which is right. And the problem that we would run into is that when we would go back to that same place to add another feature in that same area, the test started getting in our way. And this test started, the tests would break and they would cause problems. So we got lots and lots of code coverage. And the problem was when we started looking at our tests, a lot of our tests weren't actually very good. They just made sure that we got test coverage. Are there tests on this? Yeah, there are tests on that now. There are tests on that now. Okay, good, then it's safe to change. It was not safe to change. The tests usually tested behaviors sometimes. They check state sometimes. The integration test, we would integration test some things where it made sense to integration test, and we would unit test some things as well. But none of them were very good. None of them were well maintained, and it kind of just got in the way. Welcome, Lance. And it's just kind of silly because we just sort of added them because the motivation was, we're going to increase that number, and we got the number up. The number went up. It was great. But do I have a Visual Studio update? I might. Is that what this is? No, it's just yelling at me about ReSharper because Visual Studio and ReSharper have been fighting for years now. They get in arguments. They're all like, hey, you're slow. No, I'm slow. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, dude, guys, come on. Settle down. Anyway, so the silliness of that is we focused on coverage and not quality, and we ended up in a bad place. And I think that happens a lot. And the funny thing is, I also sit there and I go, that code shouldn't be tested. That code shouldn't be tested, or at most be tested by a full system or an integration test. But it certainly doesn't need a unit test covering it. And because of that, I now have spots where I'm like, let's not put a test on that because it's not really going to add any value. So I'll just tell you right now, you don't need 100% test coverage. If you've got, 60, 70% test coverage on an application that started with testing, that's pretty good. If you've got 80% with an application that started with testing and they're well maintained, great. You did a good job. That's excellent. There are some parts of your system that didn't get tested. Okay, they probably even could have used it. Maybe your test coverage in your application should be around 90, 95, but it's judgment calls on all of these. Let's see. You're writing new math functions like the behavior of some partial sums when you manipulate fractions. How do you do unit testing on a function when I don't even know what they'll return? Yeah, so when you do those kinds of things, you actually usually need to go do the math by hand to figure out what they are and compare. So you're effectively comparing the done by hand math of some example scenario with the other code. So you do what you can with those. That we should always motivate our... Yeah, so you want to have good test coverage, but I actually even recommend against teams measuring the test coverage. I think you should know that you've covered your code well with tests. Like, the developer should just say, yeah, we've done a good job. And maybe you run test coverage every once in a while just to confirm that, yes, you are where you think you are. But I recommend against putting that in your build process. And the reason for that is that when you bring attention to things like that, people pay attention to things like that. And you go, well, isn't that a good thing? And I'm like, no, because the precedent you set isn't good tests, it's coverage. And that's the problem. What you want more of is more good tests. That you can't as easily measure. So when you measure test coverage, it doesn't say whether they're good or bad, and I think bad tests hurt you more than not having the test at all. So a bad test costs you more than no test. So you need to avoid bad tests to the point of not measuring that. All right, so what is going to... There are also scenario coverage. Yes, exactly. So there are some other things you can look at, like, yes, exactly. Yep, as Fuel Snable mentions, the reason why people do code coverage metrics is because it's easy to get a code coverage metric. So you can just do it and how much got called? That much. Okay, cool. All right, let's jump into some code because there are a couple of things I wanted to talk about today that I think are interesting. So let's do a sample scenario now that we've talked a whole bunch about TDD, testing, why it's good, and lots of scenarios. I can't believe we talked that much. That was kind of fun. Haven't done one of those in a while. All right, Evan, you are great, and welcome, and thank you for following the stream. Just test all the way down if a statement works. Exactly, Ace Flames here. We just need to confirm that if works. And Tech Guy Will, thank you, Will. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for the follow. All right, so I made a class called Character, and I don't mean like a letter like an A or a B. This is just the test scenario that I wanted. I'm channeling my Guy Royce right now. So Guy Royce would be all about this. So let's make a test about a character. New character. So we're going to do this. Now this test is going to pass, right? There's nothing about this. Are you going to be showing a good and bad example of tests? So Tech Guy Will, I am actually going to be walking through some stuff on testing right now, and I'm actually going to show a testing technique that I don't think that enough people are doing. That I think can help remove some of the complexity in some of your tests and make them a little bit easier in some ways. So, yes, exactly, Lance. I'm sure it was GoTo that was broken. And yes, so Fuel Stable's right. There are a lot of different types of testing that we could dive into. I want to jump into this today, and let's create a character, and we will name him. What is his name going to be? Barbie McBarbface. Alright, so I guess it could be him or her. I guess I don't know. So there is the name. So we're going to name this character. We're going to do that. We're going to give him a name property. There we go. So character's got a name is Barbie McBarbface. Alright. Next thing that we might do is give him some kind of a character class. So let's call him, let's call this car class. And we're going to say it's a barbarian. Barbarian. All right. So I'm just going to make this an enum for now. I understand I could polymorph I could do polymorphism on this, but we're just making an example. So we're going to create that type, and that type is going to be enum. And we are going to add barbarian to that. If anyone watched my DevChatter Basics video on enums, you probably know that I was about to do that and start off the first item in my enum as a 1 so that there is no 0. The YouTube videos with data structures with Guy were awesome. You're looking forward to more of that. Glad to hear it, Ace Flames here. I was actually talking to Guy yesterday on his stream, and we were discussing the fact that we need to do another one of those sometime soon. Sako TV, welcome. Thank you for that follow. What am I doing? All this talk about pros and cons of TDD, and I don't even know what we're actually programming. So right now, I'm just actually going to do an example today, because normally I work on some of our ongoing projects, but today I felt like just doing some TDD. So I'm going to build something Dungeons and Dragons related here. That is a bad name for that variable. Can I get away with that? Nope, I can't get away with that. All right, pro tip. If your variable name has that, you can throw something on it. But I think in this case, I am going to say car class. That's why I had to car class the thing, because class doesn't work. Yes, I could underscore class, but I think I'm going to go with car. It's the character class. I shortened. What do you want? I keep us zoomed in so the code isn't like really tiny for all of you. So class, yeah, I could see class. All right, so what else do we want to put on here? So right now, this test obviously works. I haven't made a failing test yet because I haven't really tested anything. I'm just kind of building up a structure so that we can test something on here. Let's make an auto prop on that as well. So string class. So name that. Now, how do we want to do this? Because I want to. So there's this specific thing that I want to get to. So let's add in level. So we're going to make him a first level character. And, I don't know, we'll give him hit points. We'll give him a strength, int dex, int constitution. Am I adding enough of these yet? We'll have int, whoops. Wisdom and int charisma. All right, so there is our constructor. That got out of hand, didn't it? Yes, so Mr. Shoji's right. If you're gonna, so I will mention, if I'm gonna store it in a database or any kind of data store, I will number every item in the collection so that they maintain. If the program is only ever going to run in memory and those values don't actually get stored anywhere, I set only the first value to avoid a 0. What sounds a bit cringy? Class? Yeah, class is a bit cringy. Can you use hex in the enum instead of the 1? Yes, you absolutely can. You can use binary if you want. Here, convert to hex. So totally can use hex values for those. And you could use binary if you really want. So, in fact, when I use bit flags, I use binary because it makes it clearer to anyone that reads it that I'm doing bit flags with it. Even though I'm going to have, like, you know, flags at the top, I still will do it in binary because then people are going to see, you know, this kind of a setup and they're going to be like, oh, I understand. So they'll know what I'm doing then. Okay, yes. No. And in fact, something that I mentioned in... See? People should go watch my, my DevChatter Basics video on enums. It's on my YouTube channel, which I should actually just link to my YouTube channel so people can subscribe to my YouTube channel, because that makes it easier. I'd always use binary or hex for flags, depending on how... yes, exactly. Mr. Shoji is absolutely right. If you're going to do flags, you do not want to use decimal, because it's harder for people to tell that those are the values, even, despite the fact that developers should know, like, you know, the 1, the 2, the 4, the 8, the 16, the 32, the 64... Like, you can recognize those and probably figure it out, but it makes it nice and obvious the other way. Fuel Snable, I'm planning on sending in something for the next one. So I will submit a session to the next one. I did not submit a session to the previous one, but I will send something in. All right, so we have level. HP will be like 12 because we got, you know, something or other. The strength will be like a 16. The dex will be a 14. Constitution will be a 14. Intelligence will be a 6. Our wisdom will be an 8, and our charisma will be, I don't know, 9. Surprisingly, there you go. So there's a set of stats, and you look at that and you're like, okay, cool. And then let's say that I'm intentionally writing this as a bizarre test right now. So I'm trying to show. Oh my God, Mr. Shoji, you're right. Random did not do well for you that time. We'll fix that. That didn't get much better. Try that again. There we go. That's a little nicer. Only a few times do you actually get bad, Ripbot, what are you talking about? Ripbot, what do you mean? Oh, yeah, that it came up with a bad color? Yeah. We're doing... It's random color selection. You're gonna get some bad ones. Okay, so let's do character 1 and character 2, and we're gonna do a couple of tests. So you'll see this kind of thing often. You'll see these tests where someone will create, you know, this big old thing, and sometimes they'll do it with a big constructor, sometimes they'll do it with an object initializer. You never know. Hey, Cadmus, welcome. And then you get some kind of thing where you go like, all right, let's test the attack method. So we'll say like, you know, we'll throw both characters into an arena or something like that. So we'll say like, new arena, you know, and we'll put character, and then we'll say like, I don't know, arena, and we'll say arena dot battle and character 1, character 2, and then we'll store the result of this as result, and we'll say, like, you know, result dot winner should be what is it? Should be character 1 or something, right? And we're gonna do one of those. And the funny thing is, it's not yelling at me yet because of the fact that it doesn't know what these types are. Because of this compilation error, it can't yell at me about these ones because it doesn't know what they are. So that's the funny thing of that. Let's go ahead and make a class. Arena for this. And if people are wondering, like, I'm just trying to set up an example right now. So this is going to return a character. No, this is going to return... Yeah, I'm actually just going to make this a character winner, character loser. And we'll just do that because then I don't have to make another class for this. So that'll be character A, and that'll be B. And it's fine. It's fine. Everything's good. All right. Someone here knows what I'm about to go grab from NuGet. Which is going to be Fluent Assertions. Because I like Fluent Assertions. So we will install Fluent Assertions in this. And yes, I agree. Yay for tuples, because I didn't really need anything more than that, and I don't need to create a class for it. That being said, try to watch out for tuple abuse. Shouldly, yes. Same thing, Cadmus. Same thing. Yep, yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. It's not an error if it can't get past the first error. It can't possibly be an error because we don't know what anything else is. It doesn't know the types. It can't tell there was an error there. Imagine that. I got an error of a not implemented exception was thrown. I wonder how that could have happened. Return A, B. There we go. Code totally works. Low-key Lucky, welcome. Thanks for that follow. Okay, so we just made so funny enough, you've hopped in on my talking a little bit about testing in TDD. So I sort of am TDDing this concept of making characters that are going to battle in the arena, though we're not really going to do full implementations of that, because that's irrelevant to what we're doing. I want to talk about the concept of having a cleaner test. So this test is already starting to you know, it's hard to tell what's going on. And I wanted to, so today I'm focusing on one thing that is going to make your tests not as clean as they could be, and that is this. So right now this test passes, but that's because I didn't actually do much with it. So let's change this from a fact to a theory, which difference between a fact and a theory, for those that aren't familiar with XUnit, is a theory is just a fact is a test that is just one thing. A theory is a test that can have multiple data points applied to it. So this lets me specify multiple test cases. So you'll notice by switching it to a theory, I'm now getting a little red squiggly line there because it wants me to give it some kind of data. So I'm going to do inline data because I can. What do I want to do? So, okay, so, I guess we'll do that, and then this will be like 3 and 5. Okay, so, I'm gonna name this, let's say Arena Battle Should. Okay, so that's going to be our class name, and then for our test, declare first as winner given welcome, whomever that was. Jitesh, I'm guessing? Welcome to the stream. Sorry, I missed your name at first, and then had to go find it on my screen there. Make B win, please. Don't worry, I will, Ace Flames here. Alright, declare first as winner when higher level. So I'm going to split them this way. Because I think it's going to make... Well, let me finish this one. We'll split it and add the other one. Okay, so... A level, int B level. Okay. So, here's the deal. I'm passing in these two variables, the level of A and the level of B, and I'm saying that I want the first one to always be the winner, which means these values should always be the reverse of what I wrote here. Maybe that's what Ace Flames here was trying to say. Okay, so instead of filling in the level like this, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that. Okay, so I've made this test. Obviously, these values don't matter. That doesn't matter, that doesn't matter, this doesn't matter, these don't matter. So, which is the point. That's the point I'm trying to make, is none of those things mattered. Okay? And then I run this and we're expecting that result. So this is going to pass, partially because I'm not actually even doing the code right now. And I'm just declaring A the winner no matter what. But now let's make a test that does the opposite, and we're going to see something right quick that is a problem. Yeah, A always wins, yes. A always wins. Oh, wow, you're right, the bot is dead. I should go res that bot at some point. But I'm not going to worry about it. Alright. Second is winner when higher level. Alright, so let's reverse these. So 1, 2, 5, and 3. Which actually, I'm going to change the values just in case, so that we're not like hard-coded to that value set. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if a.level, oh, did I not? Hang on. I didn't actually store these. Can't believe no one yelled at me about this. Auto properties. Auto properties. Yep, glad I don't actually have to write any code for that. There we go. Thanks for writing all the code for me, Resharper. Alright, so if a.level greater than b.level, then we want to return ab. Else, if I see people chatting, I will get to that in a second. It's less than b.level, then we want to return this, and down here, I am actually just going to throw a new not implemented exception. Because we haven't implemented that feature yet, so I might as well just throw that. And I guess since they're returns, I do not need the else. It is absolutely correct. Thanks, Resharper, you're right. Because I would have returned on those. Okay. Let's run our tests again. Which, hopefully this fails because I didn't update the test, actually. Jitesh, your question, what am I working on? So, we are actually building a... so right now... Normally on the stream we work on ongoing projects. Today on the stream I decided to go take a little aside, and we're doing a little bit of talk about testing. The beginning part of this stream, like the first, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour of the stream, we're actually just discussing TDD and testing. It was actually really fun. So if you did miss that, keep in mind that all of our videos are recorded, and you can actually go see them in the video section here. But that being said, let's go down here, and we're going to say this should be character 2. A level, B level, so we're expecting the result, so the winner should be character 2, and then in this one, this should have B and A, so if B was the higher level, he should be first, and then A, actually, let's leave this alone, because that's still wrong, so let's do this. So we're saying that the winner should be character B in this test. Let's try running it. This should give us not implemented exception. Whoops. All right, so these return not implemented exceptions, which is fine. So I can do this and put in the code that handles, hey, what do you do if the other case, and I've still got it wrong here, keep in mind. But that's fine, we're going to make sure that it can fail for this reason. That someone, messed up the code. So if someone messes up the code, we do get the error of, hey, we were expecting this, we got the other one. Okay, that's fine. So clearly I didn't switch them correctly, so I will do that. And then when we run the tests again, ta-da! Okay, so obviously stupid simple test. Everybody knows that. That's not the point. And yes, I agree, Resharper for the win. All right. So, my question for everyone here. What is the messiest thing right now about these tests? The biggest mess, the toughest part to maintain right now. And the silliness is that, well, there's not much code. So because there's not much code, there's not a lot of repetition that I'm really worried about. Like, creating the arena, sure, we could extract out that as a field, as a constructor, and say, like, hey, yeah, this is the subject of our test. And we're going to say, the subject is out there. We can extract that. So let's go ahead and do that. Which I will start by switching this to a field. And welcome, Mobile. Welcome, Mobile Dev. Oh my God, Cadmus wins! Someone give Cadmus a prize. Cadmus got it. Cadmus knows what I'm doing. Cadmus knows. Congratulations, Cadmus, you figured me out. You know exactly what I'm about to talk about. That was good. We are going to talk about the builder pattern here today. Excellent work. Well done, chat. You have exceeded my expectations as usual. See, this is actually why I mentioned at the beginning of the stream. I may be the host of DevChatter, but DevChatter is an awesome community of developers. That's why I love our community. It's just really, really good. Okay. Another new question. What are those theory inline data things? Oh, sorry, Pudding. I thought I mentioned that. So, if you're doing a single test of a single thing, you're going to write fact, and you're going to say, like, public void, do something, and in here you're going to say blah, 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 what? Wow, that was weird. Blah, blah, and then you're going to do, like, an assert something or other, right? In this case, I wrote it as, like, 5 should be 5, right? And then that would be, like, our test, right? Just like this, okay? If we want to have parameters, so I wanted to take in what the value of 5 was, I could do int x and replace the 5 with x and change that to x. Now all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, you can't have parameters on this. And then you say, okay, well, I can make it a theory, and I can use the inline data of 5 and hit page up for some reason on my keyboard. I don't know why. But then you do inline data 5, and all of a sudden this is that same test again. Okay? So that's all theory and inline data are. I didn't want to lose anybody on that, so that's just saying this is a test method, and I want to be able to pass multiple parameters to it. General, welcome. Thanks for that follow. Much appreciated. Welcome to the stream. Yep. Okay. So back to this. So the messy part here, of course, that a couple of people in chat figured out. Both Ace Flames here identified that it was the creation of these objects, and then specifically Cadmus got that it was the builder pattern that we're going to be talking about. So what's relevant in the creation of this? What should we be focusing on? So the couple of things that we need to focus on in this test setup, so it's what's important. So think of this from someone that's going to read this test in the future. What do they need to know? They need to know two things. They need to know what object I'm creating here, so that I'm creating these character objects. And for the sake of this test, they care about the level of the character being set to what it is. And if they get the understanding that the only difference between these two is the level, and that's what's important, that makes the test really, really obvious. So, how do we do that? Well, we're going to use the builder pattern, which I should point out, the builder pattern is actually a pattern you can use anywhere in your code because, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, your test code is real code. You should be taking care of it and keeping it clean just like your real code. So let's make a builder. Now, because we're doing this on, all right, I'm tired of this. I'm actually going to move these. I was going to keep everything in here because we're just doing this on a stream, and I'm just kind of tossing code in here. But I am actually going to extract all these to their own files just for the sake of doing that. Whoops. That was silly. Move that to its own file. And then back in here, we're going to rename this file to match the type. Okay. A little bit less messy. Let's see. Never seen things being written with the square braces before the method definitions. Oh, yes. Extensive is pointing you to the correct thing. It is called attributes in C#. And pudding, I should mention, I am doing a series of videos on YouTube. I have been doing them, called DevChatter Basics. It's on our YouTube channel, which some people in here probably have actually watched some of. In those videos, something I am doing is going over basic concepts. So my most recent video was enums. I had a comment on that video that asked me if I was going to cover descriptions on enums, for example. And I pointed out, I was like, no, I didn't cover flags, and I didn't cover I didn't cover descriptions, and I said I was going to do that in some later videos. So I am planning on talking about those as attributes at some point. I want to do a video on attributes because we use them a lot in MVC type stuff in ASP.NET. We use them for our automated testing in C#, and we also use them a lot with our enums. So I want to cover attributes at some point. I'm hoping that I get to all those pieces in the attributes video. Again, if I don't, I try to keep them short because I want them to be like 5 to 15 minutes at most, because I want to be able to just cover a topic and be like, you can just watch about this topic and you don't need a lot of time for it. So someone could do it, over their lunch break or before, like when they get to work, when they get off work, whenever. Can you explain the testing window? My test won't run. I don't know why. So there could be a lot of things. You might not have a test runner or something along those lines. Also, welcome back, Mandaponium, and thank you for asking a question in there. So I actually am using the ReSharper test runner. I like it a lot better than the default one that comes in Visual Studio. That being said, the default one in Visual Studio does work fine. In fact, my ReSharper one broke for a whole version of ReSharper. There was a Visual Studio update, and ReSharper's test runner stopped working, and then they released a new version. It started working. Funny thing is, a whole bunch of us had that happen to us, and it was like, oh, new version came out. We're like, hey, it works again. So we were stuck using the standard Test Explorer, which is this one. This is the built-in Visual Studio one. Looks a little bit different. It's had a lot of updates recently, and it is much better than it was. I used to avoid it like the plague, but I do occasionally use it. It's not exactly the way that I want it yet. It's still missing a couple of features. Or you could do what Mace Flameseer says and just not test. No, please test. VS Code also has some test runners. There's other things like that. So, test can't fail if you don't have any tests. Good thinking, buddy. Good thinking. All right, so let's go ahead and I want to jump into the builder pattern. So let's go ahead and start making our builder. So I said builder pattern. So we'll use that naming convention. Although you don't have to. So let's make a public static. Let's say build character. Public static class called build character. I remember syntax. All right. So let's do public static build character. It's not static. It's a build character. It has a static method called build. character. Hang on. Sorry, I gotta get my brain working here for a second. It's called build. That is going to return back. No, it is not. This one's not static. Derp. And for now, this is just going to return back a new character. No. Return new character. All right. So this is what's going to build us a character. Our character builder. We're going to say build character, and it's going to pass in all of this stuff. Let's do that. Okay. There, it builds a character. So this is step one of what we could do. Yeah, so it'll make sense in a second. So don't. I think my naming convention's fine. But yes, occasionally while you're writing stuff, your brain just doesn't work the way that you want it to. Okay, so now what I can do is I can do the first step of doing this. I could say, we'll say var a equals build character dot build, right? And that'll get me my character, and then I could just say a dot level equals a dot equals a level, right? That's the variable that passed in. So I could just set that value. I didn't actually put a setter on that, so that doesn't technically work. All right, so how do I set that value now? Because I want to switch to this, because this is way nicer. Okay, let's do this. Let's go ahead and change how we do this. So first off, right now, because we're doing this with TDD, I'm not going to give you all the power in your builder right away. We're going to do this a little bit at a time. So I'm going to create a level variable, a level field, that I am going to have a field initializer for. Okay, so level is now equal to 1. All right, now let's do the next thing. And that is, actually, do I want to do it that way? No, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it slightly differently. I am going to have level, but I'm not going to set the value. Let's make another method. I'm going to do one other thing first. I'm going to go slightly more advanced. With defaults, I'm going to make a with default, defaults plural on it. Okay. It made it void because it didn't know what to do, but let's see what happens with it. Hang on, I need to do something I didn't do yet. Bring the bot back up. Okay, so with defaults is going to return a build character, and I'm going to make this one static. So we're now going to say build character with defaults dot build. Now, some people might not like my, build character and then build on the end. I don't totally mind the name, but the way that it, you can tweak that if you don't like that convention. You can, whatever you want to do with it, that's fine. So with defaults currently does nothing, but I'm going to have it return a new build character. Right? Totally fine. This should now work again. That value is just not getting set for the level. Okay, so how do I set the level? Well, I can go in here and I can say public build character and say level, taking in an int level, and now I can say underscore. Let's assign this to a field. No, you won't assign that to a field. Yeah, I wanna field this. There we go. Underscore level. It's gonna get set to that. In fact, instead of doing with defaults, I guess I could say empty, but it's fine. Level, and then return this. Okay, so here's the magic. Right there. That's the magic right there. So if you're looking for what to pay attention to, so this is the confusing part. I'm going to explain it so that this makes sense, because this is the part that someone's going to get lost on. We have this class called build character. Build character has a static method called with defaults. That is the only way that you build these things. In fact, just to make sure that that is the only way that you build these things, I'm going to make the constructor private. So the only way to get this is to say with defaults right now. So if I want an instance of build character, I am going to say build character.with defaults. In fact, I'm actually going to get rid of the defaults on that and just say with. So here's what we're going to write. We're going to write build character with level 1. Okay? Everybody on board? Build character with level 1. Instead of level 1, I'm going to say A level. And this one, I'm going to say B level. If you didn't catch that, I can explain a little bit further. I'm still going to explain more about what we're doing there and why, but I want to get to the point where this runs. So I changed it to do that. I can do the same thing down here. Now, any code, so not just arena tests, but any tests where I need to build these characters, I can start using this builder, and it makes it much clearer. The reason for this, that I want to build this way, is the only thing that mattered here was the level. And this, you can see, the only thing that Brendan set on this object was the level. So that means class didn't matter, hit points didn't matter, like, the strength, the constitution, the dexterity, none of the other properties of like the dozen that I put on there mattered, except for that one. And this makes it clear that that's all I cared about. And so that makes a nice way of building it. Now, I'm going to show you another thing. Why not have a single method in the test class which only has optional parameters with default values where you can just pass? So, that is a fantastic question. So, let's talk about that. So the suggestion was, why don't I make a private character, get test character class right here, and we could set those values, and one of them could be level. And absolutely, you can do this. And again, depends on the complexity of the objects you're trying to create. Sometimes they're very complex, so even doing these everywhere is going to get messy and hard to tell what's going on. So you can do these types of things, right? That obviously that's not going to compile. But there's a couple of catches here. We now say, all right, I want to use that same thing in another method, which means the code I've got highlighted right above me here, that code is going to be repeated, with all of its structure, it's going to look like this. With these things, and there's going to be more complexity to it. This is going to be in every single test method that needs to create characters. And then what do you do when we added a new parameter to character? Okay, so I now go to the 50 tests that had this, and I add in this new feature. And the reason why is because I haven't actually extracted this out of my test class. I have now tied this to arena battle should by putting it in here. And then the thing that everybody's going to say is, well, then just make a base class. And it's like, okay, but then the problem I run into is everything that wants to use characters all of a sudden has to have a character class. And there's two things that are either going to happen from that. I'm either going to have a whole bunch of those base classes that we're going to spread around, and we're going to have to decide very carefully which one we want, because no multiple inheritance, and the fact that we have no multiple inheritance is a good thing, or I'm going to end up with this huge base class that gives me access to effectively like builders and test cases for everything that just becomes this enormous thing. So that's part of the challenge that you can run into going this route. That being said, you can absolutely do this, and if you have a simple case and you just need a small object, do this. This is simple and easy. You can absolutely do that. There's nothing wrong with that approach. I am talking about when you are going to be building some more complex objects, which totally happens, you can take these and make this. And essentially all this is a nice wrapper around that method. So if you're about to say, well, you could just extract that method, that's what I did. That's what this is. This is that get test thing. It's just put in a nice wrapper. Yeah. So as Mega said, yeah. You just don't have to implement all those builder methods. You can move this into a static class as you would with the build. So the reason for the builder piece is that I get lots of control. So you're right that you could name... Yeah, sorry, Ace Flames here. You could do, like, named parameters on optionals and things like that, but we have some nice control in using a builder class that can do some really cool things. So I think I know what you're talking about. You're talking about having this with a whole bunch of optional parameters, and you use name parameters for a setting that which ones you want. And you can totally do that in C#. It absolutely can do that, and it works great. Some of the things I like about these are just, I like chained methods like this, and I think they work nicely. Additionally, in doing this approach, there are a couple of things I can do that are slightly harder in that approach, and that is that I can do packaged up things. So, for example, I could say, build character, as barbarian, for example, and I could start out with a bunch of barbarian defaults. So set barb defaults for so if I'm going to do tests where I need a barbarian specifically for it, I can do these kinds of things with a I could say as, default barb, for example, or something like this, and it's going to set a basic barbarian, and then I can tweak the values. And the reason for this is this, because you're still missing a couple of points. There are some power that we can do, and that is I could decide that I wanted to say, okay, I wanted to have the template, which was a build character as a default barbarian, and I could say, that the level was a 4, and let's say the specifically for this scenario, we needed charisma to be 18, right? And we're going to do this comparison, and so that gets me the template. So now notice that I have not called build yet. So actually I should save it like that. So now what I can do is I could say character 1 is template level and template level build. And so if, for example, I need 2 characters to have some very specific stuff with their setup, I can assign those and essentially create a template out of it like this. So this is going to return back a build character with charisma, and we will assign the charisma value. Let me just field this. Yes, it will. Good. There we go. And then this will return this. So these effectively become the setters for this. But what we're building is effectively a template. So I can come over here, and is this charisma? I think that's charisma. Hopefully I didn't mess that up. Yes, Fluent Barbarians. So this is the idea, is that I can set these values and adjust as needed. So I could have set as many things. So like if I said, hey, it needs to be a charisma 18, and it specifically has to have, but an int of 3, right? But I have to have these values. I can set up these templates and build like that. And I can't see what it is because Nightbot nuked it, but I'm guessing you posted a link. I think we can permit you to post a link for a moment. Do I need to leave off the @ on that? There you go. You have 60 seconds to post a link without Nightbot harassing you. If you do have that paste bin link. Let's have a look at your paste bin. I have a feeling you're doing exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. Static character create, and then yes, you just set in defaults. Yeah, that's what I said. I mentioned that that's exactly what you'd be doing, and what I'm pointing out is the power that builder gets you that is not this. So the challenge with this is you could even call these named, right? So you could take this static class and have the parameters like this, and you could even specify, hey, I want this to be the value, because we have named pieces. So, as an example, I could specify on each of these if I made any of these, right? Hang on, I know that's not actually set it to a valid default value, Brendan. I could specify on here like an actual named value, even if I don't have to. So we could then say like, the cha is this, and then that makes it similarly readable. However, what you lose on that is the ability to do these kinds of things where you say, here's the template, and then from that template, I want to be able to make a single change to each one of these and build the object and create separate objects that have all of the same parameters, but this slight difference. And that's what you lose, is this power. The power to specify, hey, I want to build this template, here's how I want to build it. And so, yes, can you do it that simple way? Absolutely. But you miss out on some of the real power of it. So that's why I'm trying to show, like, here's how you use the builder pattern. So the builder pattern actually exists for more than just testing, to be able to do this kind of work. So it's very cool. That's why I mentioned, like, yeah, does... Oh yes. You're like, now that you mentioned templates, I'm like, yes, I'm building that. That's what I was trying to point out. I'm like, yeah, you can absolutely do it that way, and I know exactly what you're where you're getting at, and you can go down that route if you want, but we don't need to. So when you build one of these, I recommend you do it that way. The trick is, and what makes this a little bit complicated, and why you do these this way sometimes. All of these values, I didn't totally build this right. So this is like the character name, for example, which again probably doesn't matter. This is underscore class. Ha 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 ha. Okay. And you can set those, and then as a barbarian, we could come in here, and the set defaults on this could be that we create a new one, and it has a name of something, and we can actually, funny enough, use the builder in here. So I could set like the charisma to like 3, and the default level is 1, and you can build up like this. So you can build your builder however you like. Tech guy, take care. Have a good one. Thanks for hanging out. And yes, for anyone else, if you haven't yet, be sure to click the follow button, as it is the best way to get notified when we go live here. So lately, my streams have mostly been on Saturdays. The DevChatter live stream and thus our community and everything like that, we actually started a little over 2 years ago. But for the past, 6-7 months or so, my schedule has been packed. So I have more clients than I'm supposed to normally have right now. So my schedule is more than a normal work week, which is not a terrible problem, but has meant that my Saturday streams are the only streams that I've been doing lately, except for 2 days ago I did a Thursday stream. So that was fun. I was really happy to have done that again, because I hadn't done a weekday stream in a long time. That being said, one of my big contracts is actually going to be coming to an end soon. I want to replace it with a contract smaller than it is, so that my schedule does allow for streaming again. So that'll be in a couple of months. I should be back to my old streaming schedule, which, for those of you that are wondering, was Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Let's see, Icarus. Another benefit of the builder pattern with default methods is that you can reduce the noise in tests and gives visibility. Yes! That's exactly why we're doing it, Icarus. Yep, precisely. So we showed that there was this sequence of, like, values that we were setting on there, and the only one that actually mattered is level. So if anybody looks at this, they can see, okay, he didn't care about what anything was except for level. So, yep, that is perfect. So The plan is to try and do that, but more important is finding a client. So if I end up finding a client that needs more work than that, I will probably take the client that requires too much work, because at the end of the day, I need to pay the bills, and streaming will probably never pay the bills directly unless I go and grab one of those like developer advocate jobs at a company or something like that, where they wanted me to stream, coding stuff. I don't know that I'm actually going to find a company that wants me to do that. But the only one that would probably go for that would be Microsoft, and I don't think that they're up for those yet, but maybe they are. I think they're trying to use all their existing people rather than grab from the streaming community, but who knows? Alright, so we make build character out of that. Also, I just liked the name build character. I know, right? Cadmus, all those clients that want to pay you to do work for them? Jeez, that's just crazy. Why would anyone do that? Alright, so builder pattern as a way of getting that out of there. Alternate thing that we could mention is that literally the only difference between these two things is what value we check there. That is it. So you practically could just take this and be like, like, I wouldn't recommend this, but for some tests, you can almost get to this point, like test a battle and be like, here you go. That did not extract the way I wanted it to at all. That should have been var result. Phew! Resharper, you just failed horribly. That was nasty. What did you even do? Result, winner. Oh, man, that is ugly. Ew. Ew, no. No. No, why would you think that's what I wanted? Why? Occasionally, it does not figure out what you wanted when you do an automatic method extraction. This is what I wanted. At best, was something like this. How do we check that winner, though? I might need to actually pass that out. Well, that would get really messy if I did that. Well, I could just check the whole thing, but I don't want to do that. Well, I guess I'll pull it out. Do this. Just leave it as it was. Because there's not a great way to do that. How could we extract that to simplify? What could we do? There's got to be a way to do this. And by this, I mean, I should specify, in this example that we're looking at, this is not complex enough that I really need to do this. This is fine as is. Yeah, it's because I had the reference to winner that it got confused about that, because it was like, oh, I do need this. And so it was trying, like, I understand what it was trying to do. Hey, ADC, welcome. It's got to be a nice way to do that, though. Either way, not terribly worried about it. I thought that worked out nicely. All right, so some other concepts that we've talked about. So I pulled these out so that we could test them. Kupin, welcome. Thanks for that follow. 10 lines should be fair, fine enough. Yes, I agree. these are nice and short. The other thing I want to point out, something I did here that I do want to mention, sometimes you can add additional test data, so I could have done some kind of thing where I tried to indicate which one should be the winner. I need a haircut. ADC, hey, thank you very much for the tier 1 sub. Much appreciated. Greetings. I assume that was a sub because you think Interactive 7 is awesome. That or you just really love my emotes. And I don't care which it is, but thank you. And enjoy your sub badge as well. Hopefully it will hatch someday. They are some sweet emotes. I know I've talked about the artist that did my emotes before. She's fantastic. But they are really good. This one is my favorite one. That one right there. That was my favorite of our emotes. is the shocked face. It's like, what? Can't believe that thing just happened. Whatever that is, I don't know. It's good. Yes, I like the love one too. Okay, so the thing I was mentioning is I like to separate my tests by what is a good named chunk. So if you are using a framework like an XUnit or an NUnit and you're not using one of the more like descriptive style that you might get, so like you've probably seen me when I did the I did a series of these streams with Guy Royce. We're going to continue that, by the way. We were talking about that yesterday. Guy and I are going to continue doing our series of streams where we build inefficient data structures in JavaScript. And as part of that, what we do is we're doing which one are we doing? Is it Mocha? We're doing we're in JavaScript, so we're different test frameworks, but we're doing these nice descriptive tests where it's like, hey, in this context, this thing, this blah 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 blah, and it's very descriptive. It's a little bit harder to get descriptive in XUnit and NUnit style testing, so this stuff that we're used to in the C# world. So what I try to do is I try to get the names right. So I do like arena battle should declare first as winner when higher level, and declare second as winner when higher level. So these kind of describe what's going on, and you can read it a little bit. So if I'm looking here, I say, okay, for the clean testing demo, arena battle should declare first as winner when higher level, declare second as winner when higher level. And so because I couldn't easily bring these together, I separated them out into obvious named sections where I can still have additional tests, of like different values, but I've made clear what they are. So sometimes you get like the case where, oh, I could just, put in all the values and include null in the set. So like if these were like nullable ints or something like that, someone might, put in their test data a null, and I'm like, you can, but what I prefer to do is either say covers the edge cases as a test name, or you could do something like make a test of handles nulls correctly. That way, when it fails, it failed because there was an issue with how it handled nulls or how it handled the edge cases, for example. As opposed to it just doesn't work at all. And so that gives some meaning to these. Because if you end up with test cases where you have like, a dozen test cases, because this is very common to have like a big chunk of test cases, or sometimes they're even actually loaded off into another section of your code because you had so many that you've actually got a member at the bottom of the test class defining what they are. When you get to those points, you start to realize I should really be grouping these. And that's another thing that can end up biting you. So make sure if you're doing that you group by these named things, because you could look at this and be like, well, you could have just done 4 test cases and figured out how to flip these with a third variable. Do like a true for like a bool, like does a win, or a is winner or something, is a winner, is first winner, right? Something like that. You could do that and then, flip your test based on that value. But then the problem is your test is just not as clean and easy to read. And I will always take, oh yeah, there was a little bit of code duplication to add a lot of clarity to what's going on. How did you get the folder tree on the right side instead of the left? I grabbed it and I pulled it out and I dock it to the left or the right. So if I wanted it on the left, for example, I can pin the toolbox over there. I can drag this out of here and put it right there, and yay, it's now with the toolbox. I pull the toolbox out of there, and now it's loose, and I can grab... I don't want the Server Explorer either. Dang it. No, stop. That's what I get for messing with these, huh? Wonk. Okay, let's put that over there. There you go. Now I have to fix all these, so thanks for that. That was great. Okay, move this one to first. There we go, fixed. So all those pieces, ADC, you can actually just click and drag them around. Yeah, so I agree to a point, Icarus. I think you should keep your code. So you keep your code dry to a point, but you also keep your code wet to a point, and the same goes for your tests. In both cases, remove duplication where it makes sense. So remove enough duplication that the code is still easy to read, yet not duplicated. So in this case, some of the duplication we took out was, building a default character. We pulled that out, but we left the clarity of the fact that level was what changed. And in this case, we could extract this so this was only one method and just had this and had, and only had like one line. And so we could probably make this like a 30-line class instead of a 40-line class. However, it's harder to read. So remove duplication only goes so far. So dry, while, fantastic and a wonderful principle that, absolutely is super important, cannot just be dry for the sake of dry, because then you end up with like really impossible to read code. If you see some of the extent to which you can remove duplication sometimes, you'll be like, wait, what? Why would you do that? Oh my god, I can't read this. Keep your code hydrated. Make YouTube video DevChatter basics. Ace Flames here. Make a DevChatter basics video on which thing? Yes, I kind of messed all that up. On Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio, I could absolutely do some basics videos on that. So far, I've been covering mostly C# topics, but I am planning on doing some DevChatter basics videos on basics of Visual Studio and VS Code as well. So yes, I am planning on covering the IDE, as well as doing some talk about the .NET Core, .NET Framework, .NET Standard, and .NET. And yes, that is actually the video I'm working on right now, is my video where I explain what all those are, because professional developers get really confused by it, and I have to explain it all the time. Oh, and so ADC, yeah, in VS Code. So this is Visual Studio, but in VS Code, yeah, the same thing applies. You just drag it from one side. There's actually, they have like a drop-down menu-y thing, move it around too. I think is the way they do it, if I remember correctly. All right, I'm gonna show you the most helpful thing ever. Ah, yes, good thing I pulled that off the screen. That did have something that I should not be showing on the screen. Ah, there we go. Okay. All right, there we go. So, VS Code. This is the greatest thing in VS Code. If you hit F1, it brings this. So I could say color, and it's, hey, do you want to change the theme? Sure. Why don't I change it to this? Color. I'm going to switch it back to that. You could also say, change file encoding. I don't know. Toggle render white space. So some people here probably know that I actually keep render white space turned on most of the time. But if you didn't know that that's where that was, so I have it turned on right now, you could just say that. And you look over here, hey, it's turned off. So if you're so you don't have to find it in the menu. You can actually just hit F1 and type whatever it is. If you have some guess on what it is you're looking for, so like there's Docker container stuff. Here's some Git operations for different things. Like whatever you want to do, you can search around for it. So on this, I forget how you shift that. It's like editor layout or something. Maybe it's flip. I don't know. Move panel. Yeah, move sidebar right. There you go. So that looks like what it is. But yes, I have a feeling if I just did sidebar and I look at this and I say, okay, close, focus, maximize, next, previous, toggle sidebar position. Oh, look, I found it without having to do it. So that was the thing I wanted to show you that is even more powerful than just knowing that you can move it. Hit F1, type in what you're looking for, and VS Code will show you where it is. So, like, I mean, it'll do it, right? It doesn't really show you where it is, but it gives you the power to do whatever thing you were trying to do. So, and welcome. Thank you for that follow as well. And I just realized Meeks92, which I may have just butchered your name. Anyone, also thank you for your follow from like 10 minutes ago. I was talking about something when you followed. Yes, so VS Code has a lot of really nice stuff. There is a reason that even in like some of the communities of development that really hate Microsoft, they started using VS Code. And you kind of sit there, you go like, yeah, like, does it do everything well? No, it's got problems. All text editors have problems, but VS Code is a darn nice text editor, so it's hard to argue with it. When I do JavaScript coding, I'm in VS Code. I don't use Visual Studio for coding in JavaScript. Even if I'm building JavaScript that talks to an API that's built in C#, I don't care. I do the JavaScript part in VS Code and the C# part in Visual Studio. Because, well, sanity. VS Code does JavaScript well. Visual Studio has never done it well. Your boss is firmly in the anti-Microsoft camp, but he grudgingly admits VS Code is pretty good. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Fuel Snable's boss is exactly the type of person I'm talking about. There are a lot of people that just, they don't want to touch anything that Microsoft touches. In fact, they're the same group of people that said, Microsoft bought GitHub, it's time to move to GitLab. And I'm like, why? What are you, like, what are you afraid of? Like, if you're in that boat, I hope you're not using Google Chrome or, Variety, or I hope you don't have that A company's device in your house, because you're just worried about big company at that point. All right, so I actually like the way that turned out. It almost makes me want to do something with this instead of just doing that. So I wanted to show the builder pattern. That was actually my goal for the day. I wanted to show that, and I built to it nicely, I thought, because I even got someone that called it out. So Cadmus, thank you again if you're still here. That was fantastic. All right, so do we want to do something more? Do you guys want to do something more with this, or do you want to work on something else? What do you think? I'm gonna leave it up to the audience. What do you guys want to? It's funny to say audience because I much prefer the participation. He notes more VS Code and seems happy with it, and there are some useful features not available in other tools. You want me to take the builders a little bit further? Sure, Icarus. We can take the builders a little bit further. We didn't actually complete them. Let's have a look at the builders. Okay, so I want to specify something that I did specifically on these builders. So I set them up that they don't create the object until the end. What some people do with builders is they will, on your with, when they create the new character like this, they will create this new object, they will start off with your entity. So some people, when they build this, will have inside of the constructor, they will create like a new character and assign all the values, right? Why don't I just grab this one? Hang on. Let's go steal that, put it up there. So, not return, but set this to a field. So some people will build it like this, and they won't use these values, obviously. This would be their defaults, right? So they would do something like this, build this object, and then these would change the values of the character. So the reason I don't do it this way, so there are some cases where this is fine, but here's the reason I don't do this. If you look right here, you probably saw when I took this, I extracted out these pieces, and I called this a template. Scanner, welcome. Thanks for that follow. Much appreciated. I created this template. When I did this, I did this, and I created this, and this made two separate objects. If I did that entity trick that I did before, this does not work. Because when I create the template, the character object already exists. So when I assign a new level, all I'm doing is effectively changing the same object twice. Which is why, in my implementation, I don't actually build the character object until you call the build. And that's so that I can save templates. So I can have essentially chunks of code where the end resulting object has not been made yet. So that's why I do not do this, though that is the simple form of a builder, and you can do it that way. I just want a heads up, so if the way I'm doing it is a little bit too complex for you, you can do that. It also means that you do not have to maintain fields like I do, because the way that I'm doing my builder is, it is a template builder. It contains its own information and is maintaining it separately from that object. So I have to do a little bit of extra work that you wouldn't if you did the other approach, but it gives me that great power of being able to make templates. Ah! I'm sorry, I was about to read your messages and Nightbot just killed you. Sorry. Will C# record type support with medics on record types in other languages tend to do that, so it will make sense. Oh, record types. Yes. I read, will C# record types? And no, you're talking about record types in C#. And Icarus, you probably typed .NET or something like that, and Nightbot got confused. I'm sure that's what it was. Nightbot's not smart. It's okay. We forgive you, Nightbot. Oh yeah, do I have, like, did it save in another chat window? Did I get to see what it is? Okay, what did you say? There is another pattern when you have a lot of these in the project's entry point class called build with a static property getters for builders. Helps the code discovery for the builder, and the usage could be like build.character with it. Yes. So Icarus is correct. So you can actually pull out a whole builder concept that comes out, and then that lets you start setting them up like that. Yes, yep, absolutely. So you could have like build.character with defaults, and you're essentially like building a structure for building these. And yes, that would make it very discoverable. I just did the build name because that does make them a little bit discoverable, because it will help with that. What did it think it was? Oh, build.character with defaults.build. It thought that was a link. Wow, Nightbot is really dumb today. It thought that was a link. That really wasn't a link at all. Okay. Yeah, I might extract that out. But for now, I want to get this one so I can actually show what it does. So give me 1 second to pull these out. So that's HP. That one is stir, and this also shows, like, if you watch me doing this part, you can see that this goes quickly. We don't need to, like, this doesn't have to be a thing where, you know, I'm worried about doing this code because it's going to take me forever to set all these up. And it really doesn't take all that long to set these up. You can do these pretty darn quickly. And I'm going to have to fix them because I'm not doing them perfectly. Right, like build is not where these go. These now go in in like a width, I think. Why don't I just say, I'm just going to do defaults here, and we're going to make this non-static. We're going to set up that, and then what were the other values that I was using? I don't have a charisma. Charisma equals 12, and I don't have level set either. And then return this. Now at this point, someone should notice that I need to extract some methods, and I do need to extract some methods. So level, charisma, name, class. I did not click on string. Gah! So name, class, HP, strength, dex, con, int, whiz. I'm going to put charisma on the bottom of that list so that that is in order as normally shown on a D&D character sheet. So that's assigning level, that's assigning charisma. Okay. If I now create all the other methods that I need for these, let's create a couple of these. So this will be level, and then HP, and then strength. So HP, strength, dex, and yes, I know they're not right yet. I'm going to fix them. Don't worry. Con, int, and this will be wisdom and charisma. Okay, so this one's fine. This one becomes wisdom, wisdom, and underscore wisdom. This one is int, intel, and its setting, int. Which I guess I could just do this and change level to con. And in this one, I'm going to change... Ooh, that could get messy. Cha to dex. Alright. And in this, we're going to change level to stir. This we're going to change cha to HP. That one's level. We did not set the class yet, and the name. So let's add name and class. So this will be... We'll leave that one as level, name, and class. So name is going to be a string. Name. And if you're typing in chat, give me a sec. I'll catch up with you in a minute. You're probably like, Brendan, wouldn't it have been faster to do this? And the answer is yes. I just didn't think of it at the time. Let's see. Oh, Suzuna! Ha 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 ha! Greetings. Yes, these are builders. I am showing everyone the power of builders today. So now when I come down here, I can say, instead of doing what I did here, I can do that defaults is actually just a way of calling, well, you know what, I'll do it like this. Return this dot name Barbie McBarbface, and then say dot class Barbarian, And I can say level. Level is that level. And HP is 12. And strength is 16. And dex is 14. And con is 14. And int is 6. Wisdom is 8. And charisma is 12. Done. Don't need any of those anymore. And then I can do that. If I really wanted to. So I then have the ability to just yank this out and be like, okay, look, there's my default one. And this is a default barbarian, for example, but it certainly wouldn't have to be. This could really be anything. And if I said that the default just happened to be the default barbarian, I could separate these out, because remember, I can do that templating thing that I was talking about if I really want to go that route. So with defaults, and then I can do fun things like assigning all the values. So let's say that I wanted to use this code. I could say build, so I could say with defaults, and then I would say level, and someone might have noticed, but wait, defaults calls level, and then you call level again. And it's like, yep, that's fine. The second one will have reset the value, and when we go to actually call the constructor, which if we look in here, this is the constructor, it's going to use whatever's on that property. So the second time I hit it is the one it's going to use. So for example, I could say, maybe I want a third character, and I say, but on this one I want to change the character class. So I could say, okay, well, on this one, the class is going to be our class dot, wizard, right? And congratulations, wizard's now a type, and that one is a wizard. So now you can tell, okay, I've got 2 of something, I don't care what it is, and the third one is a wizard. And, maybe it's a level 1 wizard every time or something like that. For whatever the test would be. But the point is that someone can glance at this and say, okay, so these ones are just, default. And I could actually even call this, barb template. So that's the barbarian, and it's okay, so it's whatever the barb template was. So this is someone playing as a first level character that has barbarian stats and name, but a wizard class. And we could be like doing some kind of test where it's like, oh, we need to see what happens when you have a poorly spec'd class, for example, where, really strong, beefy, not very intelligent guy is a wizard. Well, okay, yeah, it's not going to go well. And that could be the test. And you can easily identify looking at this, okay, setting the level, setting the class. But still have a bunch of defaults. So this is just a nice structure when you use the builder pattern to be able to do that. So, yep, that's what I was trying to show. Yep. Which I thought was good. It was good stuff. So you made a builder in a separate file than what it actually builds. Why not make the builder an inner class of character? So Meeks, it could be. You can absolutely put the builder closer to that. In our case, we're currently only using it for the tests. However, depending on what it is you're building, it sometimes makes sense to build it using a builder. So with a character class like this, it is like in a lot of scenarios, what's going to happen is a user's going to come in, they're going to create a character using a web interface, and they're going to send us all the data, and we're just going to deserialize it directly into our object. So in the main part of our application, we don't really need the builder, right? Because we didn't really build it in most circumstances. It just kind of came in fully completed, for example. If we were using this, so I guess what I'm saying is, for testing of an arena, for example, which is what we were doing here, we were testing like the battle mechanics of our game. It makes a lot of sense to be able to make a builder for the characters. so you can build them for testing. Since that's not a thing that we're doing here, we might not do that. Now, if you were going to have a whole NPC engine where you built like, we have like a dungeon builder. So once I start building a dungeon builder, you might say, oh, now I need to create characters for all the NPCs that are going to be in these dungeons. These characters are going to do things. And so I'm building a dozen characters for the party to fight against in here, and I want to have some similarity between them. So they're all going to be the same race, and we're going to have them all. So like the characters are fighting a group of half-elves, for example, and so we've chosen that the half-elves, and they're all going to be a group of half-elven, archers. So we do an archer build. And the variants in the ones that we create are going to be like, well, we're going to have a few that are higher level, a few that are lower level, and absolutely, you go that route, you do a builder, and you have some smart piece that takes those and builds all those objects. Once you do that, then it goes into the main code. The reason why a lot of people write TDD, so the way I did it, it looks kind of silly right now because I have all this code inside of like my test class library, not even in my main libraries. At this point, I should be creating an actual like class library for like my program and pull that out. Obviously, clean demo is not the name of my program. That's just because we're just fiddling around with this stuff. But you start extracting things out of your tests. A lot of people like to do you build it in your tests and then you pull it away style approach, and you start extracting from that. So that's what you can start doing. Welcome to the stream, Crimson Green. Welcome. So that's the idea there. Now, because of the fact that we are not super tied to that, and we don't yet have a reason to have this anywhere else, I kept it here. That being said, if you want to tie it to the character class, like the character class itself, you can absolutely tie the builder to that. My stance though is, if I can keep the character class a little bit cleaner, a little bit neater with not without having to have all the like builder concept in it, then why not? Now if I do at some point need to put it in there, I totally could, but I don't usually want to do that. I like keeping them separate because on top of that, Icarus kind of alluded to something else, which is that I can make these builders really discoverable for what you can build, and that can sometimes help with things if you go that route. So for now, mine's really tied to the testing side of things, but again, it doesn't have to be. And if it stayed just testing focused, I wouldn't want to have put it somewhere else. Right now it is, yes, that's what I'm trying to imply, Meeks, is right now mine is more of a utility for helping the tests, and if it ever becomes a core part of the application, I might consider moving it in closer to the character object itself. So I could make it like just be a build subclass. So if I could rename it to just be build and put it on the character, and then someone might call it by saying like character.build, so that it might end up being like character.build, with defaults, level 5, and then say build, right? And this could be how you called it in the long run, right? And that would be totally fine. If you get to that point and want to go that route, that absolutely works. So the beautiful thing about code is that there are so many ways of solving the same problems, which is why it's like, no, yep. Whatever approach works for your stuff. That being said, if all you're doing with it is using it on the tests, I wouldn't put it there, because then that'll keep this clean and you've got the nice separation of, I only use that for tests, we haven't used that there. And if you ever need it, you can pull it over, because you can pull things out of your test classes whenever you want to put it into the production code. And remember, everyone, the clarity in the words that I'm using. I am saying test code and production code, not like test code and real code, because test code is real code. It absolutely matters to your application. And welcome, Crimson Green. Yes, I need a haircut about as much as you do. My hair has been out of control. So, but before our state went under lockdown, I actually was already not going to get my haircut because I was like, that seems like a place where, like human is going to physically touch you and many other humans, and like that I was just like, no, I probably shouldn't get one right now. So I didn't go and get a haircut, even though I needed one before the lockdown. And then I was like, they closed down all the haircutting places, and I still need a haircut. So yes, I'll need a haircut for a while. All right, what do we got here? What did Suzuna say? Suzuna said this a while ago. Well, I will use them quite heavily to enable Fluent APIs and Twitch Lib API. I guess is a lot of work, but at least yes. So this Fluent concept that we did in the builders, it applies in many places. So it does not have to be specific to tests. In fact, it's a pattern that existed, outside of the concept of testing. I'm mainly showing how you can find value in it in testing. So, yep. And yes, from arenas to dungeons. Yep. Yes, exactly, Cadmus. A whole bunch of us got this. It's like I need a haircut. No, now lockdown. No haircut for me. Well, this is gonna be fun. The hilarity being, and plenty of people know that because I've talked about this before. I used to have really long hair, so my hair used to come down to like here. So yes, I used to have a lot of hair. And yes, Crimson, I did get some snow. And yes, it's snowing in May. It's snowing in May. There are murder hornets coming to the United States. There is a pandemic. I wonder what's next. Tommy, hey, Tommy Tutos, welcome. Yes, it has been a while, and welcome to the stream. I am doing pretty well. Yes, everybody's basically growing fur. That is a good description of it. Yep, that's good stuff. So we added those in. So the other concepts that people were talking about is like you could make a public class like build thing that had subclasses, for example, and the subclasses were like character, for example. That's not the other one. And then inside of this one, this could actually then be our builder class. So instead of being build character, it was this, and then you could do that kind of thing. So you could actually build it into there and get a nice structure. There's a whole bunch of ways you could do this. You got snow there too. Yeah. No fun. Everybody getting snow. What do we got? Let's see. Oh, yes. Ardalis did grow a beard. I want to yell at him about that. And for anybody that doesn't know, Ardalis and I are actually friends in, like, the real world, not just the internet. And so I need to make fun of him about his growing a beard, as he will probably make fun of the fact that he knew me when I had long hair. Because Steve lives, he lives that way. About, I don't know, 6-7 miles that way, roughly. It's too cold to be a bee right now. That is true. There's another major benefit for using builders and tests is maintainability of the test. Yes, exactly. Imagine a situation where you have a model change in character. Yes. Icarus, you actually hit the one that I complained first. When the suggestion came in of why don't you just use a private method inside of the test class that says get a default instance of this and has just some values to pass in with defaults. And what I said was that the big challenge that you're going to run into is when things change, even if you've already broken it out into a test method to try and help you, if you use that in, say, 20 different test classes because you were testing both arenas as well as character generation, and you were also going and you were testing, well, what about establishing parties or delving into dungeons or basic combat or healing or, whatever aspects of your game that you were building, you had tests for all those things. And every one of them has some methods that were doing the like, oh, get this test thingy. And I was pointing out that the advantage of this is You've extracted out the concept of how you create these. So this is my only character constructor right now. The only call to it in my tests is right here. If something changes, I update this class, and well, in our case, we only have one test file, but imagine you had 20 of them. You don't have to go there. You don't have to go there. You fix this one, compiler error done, it's fixed everywhere. And the problem is when you hid things away in the get test class, yes, we've hidden the actual implementation of the constructor, but I think everybody knows that I called the constructor. What we didn't hide is what values we're using. So we still have, like, here's levels. You know, we assign the levels, we can assign character classes. So whatever we changed, whatever the significant bits were on those objects, that was clear in our test, but we still got the value of it's in one place that we did it. So it is a little bit more resilient to changes. So if we change how the constructors work for characters, or we add a new property that needs to get added in there, or we change the structure of one of the others. So right now I have character class as an enum. If we decide that we instead want to use some kind of polymorphic approach, I might still set this value like this, but behind the scenes in our build method, we could have this be the switch on class. That's amazing that it knew to switch on class. I guess because it was the enum. And then, you know, we could build the barbarian here and, you know, build the wizard here, and all of a sudden all the rest of the code works just fine. It has no idea about the fact that I just changed to polymorphism with separate types in these classes, because this became a new barbarian instead of a new character, and this became a new wizard instead of a character, and none of the rest of the code even cares. And I've made a massive change that can ripple through my tests without even having to worry about it. So that's what we're talking about when we're like, this makes it more resilient to change, because you have extracted out how this stuff gets created. So it's really, really nice approach. So this is why we're trying to point out, like, these, like, this is a good pattern. It's why it is a pattern in the first place, is because you can do this stuff. And then you go, oh yeah, that's good for maintainability. And you're like, yep, it was good for maintainability in my production code. It's good for maintainability in my test code. And you're like, yeah, that makes sense. And it's like, yep, because your test code should get treated as nicely as your production code, because they are both real code. They both maintain your project. You're not the only one that grew an isolation beard. Yes, plenty of people grew isolation beards. I have not had a beard in a while. The last beard I had was when my son was born. And then I was kind of like, do I want him to know me with a beard or with not a beard? And I was like, before he starts recognizing me, I'm going to lose the beard, because I don't normally have one. So I got rid of my beard, and I was like, there we go, okay. Speaking of which, I got rid of that beard, I think, right before I started streaming. Because I started streaming, that's funny now that I think about it. My son was, like, 3 months old when I started streaming, so we just finished all the time period. So I started streaming, just shortly after, my paternity leave, now that I think about it. So I took paternity leave and then started streaming right afterwards. And paternity leave paternity leave. That just meant that I lined up my contracts to end right before my son was born, and then didn't start any. I was just like, I won't have any contracts start until after that. And I talked to my clients. I was like, hey, I'm going to take a 3-month gap. And like, we'll just have the contract start back up again then. So it worked out nicely. So I don't intend to grow a beard right now, so sorry, Crimson. You will just have to use your imagination on how evil I might look with a beard. I'm sure it's as horrifying as it would be in real life. So, okay. A couple of things I want to make sure that I talk about. Yeah, DevChatter with a beard. Whoops. Click the button I didn't mean to click. Okay. So here's the things that I want to talk about. I want to talk about. Well, first off, I want to make sure my bot is running. Is my bot running? Nope. We're going to run the bot. There we go. Hello, DevChatter bot. Thank you. Okay, could have a beard, but it would be a B beard. Yeah, so funny enough, there are actually a lot of people that don't, that only know me as B and never actually learned my name. So, like, B has actually been a nickname of mine for a long time. I don't know what you put on the DevChatter emote there, Janiscu, but it looks awesome. Whatever that is, that it looks like he's eating. Okay, so the couple of things that I wanted to talk about. I know that we've got some new people in here, so I want to make sure that I shout out some stuff related to that. So first off, if you are someone that has enjoyed the stream at all, the most important thing to do is make sure you click the follow button to make sure that you get notified when we go live. But if you haven't, if you have already done that and you want to have like more discussions to be able to chat with me and the other people in the DevChatter community, the next thing that you should do is to click on our Discord. If you don't know what that is, Discord is a chat community, so especially if you are a developer that is now working from home and you are not used to that and still want to be able to chat with other developers about cool stuff, check out our Discord, as that is a great place to talk with other developers. We literally have hundreds of us in there, and despite that, while there are occasionally interesting chats, it is not one of those like super active Discords where you're going to be annoyed by it. That being said, you can mute channels you don't care about. So if you don't care about Java, for example, mute the Java channel. If you do care about Java, don't mute the Java channel. It's up to you. Chatosaur seems to drink some... Oh, it's a drink. And thank you, Edgar and Traven. And I'm guessing Akron. Just a guess. Either way, thank you for those follows. Much appreciated. It's the shock emote with a bubble tea. It's a bubble tea. Nice. That is actually pretty good. So I wanted to make sure that I mentioned the Discord because it is actually a great place to chat about things. So I mentioned in our Discord before our stream, I usually, chime in there and I'm like, hey, I'm prepping my stream. So you usually would then also know ahead of a follow notification that was going to happen. Additionally, I am also on Twitter, so that's another place that you could find out those sorts of things and do occasionally tweet interesting things. In fact, this whole stream topic came up because I was having discussions with people about things on Twitter, and I was like, you know what, I want to do a stream about that. So we're going to do a stream where we talk about, writing clean tests, because, well, darn it, we need to write more clean tests. Many companies that I get to work with, one of the reasons I'm in there is because they're having trouble with testing and they need to clean up their tests. So I come in and I help them write better tests and clean up what they've got. And so that really is a thing. 8 minutes of shader content and timing it with music transitions. I would believe it, Fuel Snable. That is not something I even want to try. And then lastly, I want to make sure that I mention, so of stuff to tell new people, our YouTube channel has awesome stuff in it. In addition to just being archives of all the videos of our live streams, so you can see archives of our live streams going back over 2 years, because I've been streaming on Twitch for, 2 years, 3 months-ish. And that's developer in test job? No, Icarus, no. I am actually much more of a mentor than that. So most of what I do is I work with teams of developers. So so currently my main contract is actually writing a lot of code, but as part of that, the thing that I do in all of my contracts is I am in there actually as a coach and or mentor for the team. So a lot of times what I'll be doing is pair programming and working with all of the members of a development team at different points to try and help them instill good practices that are going to help them long term. So I do a lot more of that. It happens that it is frequent for companies to have gotten themselves into a rut of bad testing that they need to get out of. So I do that sometimes, Icarus. Yes, lots of companies have problems with, we wrote a bunch of bad tests, now they are slowing us down more than helping us. And yes, that totally happens. So what I wanted to mention about my YouTube channel is not just that it is the archives of this, but that I also have a series that I've been doing in there that is called DevChatter Basics, where I have been talking about basic concepts, so like the low-level foundational stuff that we all need to make sure that we remember and understand. So when we created the enum, for example, my most recent DevChatter Basics video, I was talking some of the basic stuff about enums. Like, for example, that I set that value of 1 right there, because then my wizard is 2, and there is no 0. So there's some safety in that, and I talk about that in the video and things like that. But those little bits, for example, that doesn't have to be an int. This could be any type. So by default, it might be an int, and see that went gray because that's the default. But this could be a uint. If for some reason I really needed big numbers for this. This could be a byte, even. And then I can only have, that limited amount in there. So there's a whole bunch of stuff about enums that we forget about, and that's just like my enum video. But I also talked about types and other things, and I'm going to do other just various videos about those sorts of things, because who doesn't want a 5 to 15 minute video on basic concepts that are just useful for us as developers to remember and have in our heads of oh yeah, that's how that works. So it's the types of stuff that we forget about as we dig into too many of the other things. And welcome. Okay, you got me there. Aegis? Maybe? Welcome, and thank you for the follow all the same, but man, was I going to butcher that name, because I can't tell, is that a hard or a soft J? Is that a hard or a soft G? And that's a good one. If you let me know, I will try to say it correctly in the future, but without knowing, it's always tough, because you look at that and you're like, well, I don't know. That could go either way. What country is that from? Either way, welcome, thank you for the follow. Other things that I wanted to talk about. So I am hoping that I'll be able to do some more weekday streams going forward. I managed to get a stream in on Thursday, which I was really happy about. And I do plan on trying to get... Yes, Taco Bout. Crimson heard that. He would. I was trying to get... I'm trying to get more of those weekday streams so that we're not just doing our Saturday streams. Yes, I'm glad you enjoyed the midweek stream, Pudding. I used to do those all the time, as most people that used to follow this channel on a regular basis could tell you. I used to do 4 streams a week on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. I would love to get back to that. I'm hoping that I will be able to, at least for a little while in July, but we'll see how that goes. That being said, I do want to make sure that I wrap this one up. But before you go... the thing that I want to make sure that I talk with everyone about is the fact that I do want to raid another channel, because I do think that it is good to do that. So, when you can. Along those lines, I also would say to any streamers that are thinking about raiding channels to only raid channels that you where the raid would mean I am recommending my viewers go along to that channel. So that's also one reason why I ask that people stick around and at least give any channel I raid, the 10 to 15 seconds for the streamer to try to catch your attention and talk to you about what it is he or she is building. And if it is something that interests you, then cool. Stick around, take a watch, and join in. But if it is not something that interests you, or you don't have time, wait the 10-15 seconds, say hi, and then be on your way. But that, I think, is I want to emphasize that, because I think it's really important for people to understand those nice community things. It's good to help promote as much as we can the creation that's going on Twitch. And I don't mean just, live coders, developers, things like that. There's a lot of really cool stuff that you can find on here that's not just gaming. That said, I do like the gaming too. I'm a gamer. But we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm also going to roll my credits before we go. Alex, thank you very much for the follow. And anyone else that's in here that hasn't clicked the follow button, make sure you do so, as that's the best way to get notified when we go live in the future. So, without further ado, let me roll my credits. And cheese balls! I love your name, by the way, and welcome as well. Yes, we will be rating, but first I want to roll the credits. So, I want to make sure that I thank our, everyone for being here to help and chat. I want to thank our moderators, Crimson Green, S&B, Stool Penner. Thank you very much for hanging out today and helping out with things. I want to thank all these wonderful people that followed us. That is a nice list of followers there. So if you see your name on the list, I probably said thanks when you followed, but I appreciate all of you for clicking that button. And then lastly, we had a few people down on the bottom, and thank you, Bitwy, something like that, hopefully. Thank you, Tony, Tail Learn Code, the Money, ADC, and Crimson Green. And I want to make sure that I thank, so I thank all those people. Three of those were gifted subs, but I want to thank everyone who subscribes, follows, chats, anything like that. You are always welcome and awesome. And Cheeseballs, yes, I am sorry. We are going to be leaving, but luckily you followed the stream, so you will get notified when we go live next. I'm hoping it'll be sometime this week, but if not, it will be next Saturday. I will try to schedule with Guy Royce if I can. Next Saturday, I'm hoping, if it works for his schedule, will be our next episode of our series, Building Inefficient Data Structures in JavaScript. So if that sounds awesome to you, because it does to me, then we will see you at that. For now, I'm going to drop us to our outro screen and we'll raid on over to another channel. So I will click all that, and don't mind that the outro screen comes up. That's just so that I can have that at the end of the video. Take care, everyone. Have a good one. I will see you all next time. Happy coding, everyone. Enjoy your weekend.